Jesus saw a man blind from birth. Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Neither this man nor his parents sinned. But this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his life. As long as it is day, we must do the work for him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. And having said this, he spit upon the ground, made some mud with the saliva, put it on the man's eyes. Go, wash in the pool of Siloam. So the man went, washed, and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging said, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed he was, and others said, "No, he just looked like him." But he said, "I am he." "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. "A man called Jesus made mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. And I went, washed, and I could see." "Where is he?" "I don't know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. And the day on which Jesus had made the mud and opened the man's eyes was a Sabbath. Therefore the Pharisees also asked him how he received his sight. And he said, "He put mud on my eyes, and I washed, and now I see." And the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a sinner do such miraculous things?" So they were divided. They turned to the blind man. "What do you have to say?" "It was he who opened your eyes." The man said, "He's a prophet." But the Jews did not believe he had been blind and had received his sight, so they sent for the parents. "Is this your son, the one you say was born blind? How is it now he can see?" And they said, "We know he's our son. We know he was born blind, but how he can see now or we don't know. Ask him. He's of age. He can speak for himself." They said this because they were afraid of the punishment from the Jews. That is why his parents said, "He is of age. Ask him." The word from the Lord in the house of the Lord. A blind man can see. Anybody that hasn't seen my necktie? I just want to know whether there's any blind people in this place or not. They wanted, in those days they connected every infirmity, every problem, every situation with sin. That everything was caused. And Jesus was there to say, no, some things happen, just happen. Not because they're caused by sin or because they're punishment for anything, but they just happen. And he said, that's the situation here. Imagine if you can, never having seen anything but darkness. Close your eyes and check it out. What would you like to see as the first thing upon opening your eyes and seeing? What would be the greatest gift that you could have after years and years and years of total blindness? A rose? We still got 24 roses from George's birthday. His mother, who he'd never seen. A sunset. A sunrise. Every one of us has enjoyed every one of those things because we have eyes that can see what the world wants us to see. We can see what God has presented for us to see. But I say this story isn't about a blind man suddenly being able to see physical things. This is a great story about reminding us that we are blind until we can see that Christ is in our lives. Oh, we can go through life just bouncing off of objects and seeing all of the bright lights of civilization and the works of our hands as far as buildings and cars and all sorts of things. But we're totally blind unless we can see what Christ has for us. He said no. Jesus said no. There was no sin involved in this man's blindness. There is only the works of God can be demonstrated. I heard, this is a sidebar to my sermon right now, just in case you went. I heard one of those things that opens your eyes when Barb said, because of the rummage sale, we're touching kids' lives. Because of the rummage sale, we took care of some puppies. They're maybe not your favorite creature or your major concern about God's gift to us, but they are. Our pets are a gift to us. And we did something, and by accident, we touched lives, and will touch lives again and again, because the gifts, the products, the deals that we made have affected lives far from here, and will continue to do it. The kids who can go into the room and get clothing and feel good about themselves tomorrow. Oh, open our eyes. Open our eyes, Lord, that we can see what it is that you have in mind for us. For many days, many times, we are totally blind. Did he rush back to see where Jesus was? No. He went home to see his parents. And his neighbor said, is he the one that was blind? I don't think it's him. He couldn't be able to see now. I've known him for 21 years or 19, whatever the time. And he's blind. He runs into things. He falls down. And now you tell me he can see. How can that be? Well, we're just as blind spiritually as he was physically. We're just as blind spiritually as anyone else who cannot see. Because we are looking for a reason. Who did this for you, they said. Well, he's a guy who made mud and put it on my eyes. I don't know who he was. We're looking for some way to justify everything that happens in our lives. Like if something good happens, I'll tell you how wonderful I was in making it happen. If something bad happens, I'll tell you how unlucky I am that have these kinds of things happen. No. We want reasons. We want specifics. We want to be justified. And the Pharisees came and said, well, you were healed on a Sabbath. We don't care that you were healed, but the healing took place on a Sabbath, so that's a sin. Can it be a sin to do something nice for someone out of the spirit of your heart, regardless of what day it might be? But they had a law. They had a rule that said you don't do these things on the Sabbath. There is no work on the Sabbath. I used to take our confirmation classes in Wisconsin to the temple in Fond du Lac. And when I got there, we would go on a Saturday. When I got there, I would knock on the kitchen door, and someone would say, come in. And I would go in the kitchen, and the keys to the temple were laying on the counter. And I would take the keys, and the rabbi would follow me, and we'd go across the street, and I would unlock the temple, and we would go in. I would turn on the lights. I would have the kids go to the ark and open it up and bring out the Torah on the scroll, because he could not do it by rule. He could have turned on the lights. He could even unlock the door. But he was orthodox, and he did not do any labor, any toil, any job of any kind on the Sabbath. He got to eat because his wife had prepared it the night before. But he did nothing. He talked to us. I guess that wasn't hard work. But he talked to the kids about their beliefs. And And this little thing like if he would happen to touch the Torah, the scroll, with his hand, they would have to cut that portion out and put in a new portion and have the scribe re-letter it because it would have been soiled by his hand. We get so tied up in things that we forget who it is who gives us the Spirit to accomplish things. The blind man hadn't seen anything in his whole life. Everything was black. I think, maybe it wasn't black, it was just, I don't know. I've never been blind. But he couldn't see anything. And suddenly there's color. Suddenly there's movement. Suddenly there's people. I bet he didn't even recognize Mom and Dad, except they were home when he got there. And he got them in trouble because the Pharisees came down on them and said, "Who did this? We want to blame somebody. We want to punish someone because our little rule book was violated." God's book wasn't violated. God's relationship wasn't impersonalized. Man's rules, which supersede nothing, were what were bothering the Pharisees. Open your eyes that you might truly see what it is that Christ has in mind for you. Open your eyes and see all the miracles that happen around you day after day after day. On the very day they put something in the paper about needing supplies, she showed up with a truckload. That's not an accident. God's mercy covers so many subjects, so many times, so many lives. Yeah, the man was born blind, and all he could do was sit by the road and beg. And the people who saw him with eyes that could see said, no, it wasn't him. But they had never looked at him. Even with their eyes wide open, they had never really seen the blind man because he was a non-entity in their lives. Those are the people that we need to open our eyes and see. The ones who are not blessed by wonders of the world. Those who are not blessed by the goodness of people around them. We need to open our eyes. Yeah, if you need to put mud in your eyes to see clearly, go ahead. I don't recommend it, but no. He was born blind through no fault of his own. And Jesus said, like he always did, good things will come from those who believe and for those who believe. He let Jesus put mud in his eye. Everybody here told anybody to put mud in my eye? I've heard some guys say, here's mud in your eye, but I think that's a whole different thing. I hope it's a whole different thing. He let somebody put mud in his eye. Well, he couldn't see him to stop him, so why? And then he went and washed just as Jesus had told him to do. All it takes for us to open our eyes, all it takes for us to see clearly is to accept that which comes with a bit of faith. That he even found a place to wash. He would have had to find somebody to take him there. He would have had to ask someone unless he knew the way. But he trusted enough not to shortcut the plan, but to follow through. And his eyes were opened. And just imagine, as I said earlier, what's the first thing he would have wanted to see? What's the most precious thing you have ever seen? Your first baby? Someone who came home after had been given up by medical science and come home alive and well. Oh, there are so many miracles that we need to see with the eyes of faith, that we need to make sure that we never close those eyes, that we always see with the eyes of faith, that we would never, never be blind to the wonderful love and bonus of life that God gives us through Jesus Christ our Savior. Open your eyes that you might see visions of whatever it is he has for you, for me. Open your eyes that you might see. Amen.